Forget everything you've seen so far. 2026 and 2027 will redefine what gaming really is. Brutal graphics, insane realism, and worlds that look like real life. The next generation is here to crush every limit.
Who are you? I'm a friend.
Exodus. Man, let's start this with a heavy hitter. Exodus isn't just a sci-fi RPG, it is the spiritual successor to Mass Effect that we've been begging for, developed by BioWare veterans who actually understand space opera stakes. In 2026 and 2027, this game is going to melt your brain with its time dilation mechanic. Technically, we're looking at a game built on Unreal Engine 5 that uses time as a literal gameplay currency. Because of relativistic travel, days for you are decades for the people you left behind. This isn't just a story beat, it's a technical flex, where the game's world state engine has to calculate generational shifts every time you return from a mission. We're talking about seeing civilizations rise and fall based on your choices. Visually, the Celestials, the evolved humans you fight, are some of the most complex character models ever rendered, with biomechanical tech that glows and shifts using high-end lumen lighting. It's got Matthew McConaughey as a mentor, a crew of awakened animals, and a level of cosmic scale that makes your PS5 or PC feel like it's actually working for a living. If you want a game that makes you feel the weight of 10,000 years in a single cutscene, Exodus is the one.
Animal Use Protocol. Now, let's pivot to something that is quietly becoming the most terrifying technical achievement of 2026, Animal Use Protocol. Look, I know the title sounds scientific, but this is pure first-person survival horror nightmare fuel. You play as Pen, a hyper-intelligent chimpanzee leading an escape from a lab. What makes this a graphics king is the hyper-realistic material rendering. Because you're small and close to the ground, the developers, the Brotherhood, have pushed the texture density to an insane level. You see every scratch on the floor, the realistic sheen of blood on sterile tiles, and the terrifying chimera monsters that are rendered with a level of organic detail that makes your skin crawl. Technically, the game uses a gravity manipulation tool that forces the engine to calculate physics for every loose object in a room simultaneously. When things start floating in a dark, claustrophobic hallway, the lighting and shadows, all ray-traced in real time, create an atmosphere of pure dread. It's a next-gen take on the Alien Isolation formula, but with an emotional core that makes you feel every heartbeat. It is dark, it is visceral, and it looks way too real to just be an indie title.
Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis is Lara finally coming home, and Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis is the remake we've been dreaming of since 1996. Amazon and Crystal Dynamics are using Unreal Engine 5 to rebuild the original adventure from the ground up, and man, the lumen lighting and nanite geometry here are a total game changer. This isn't just the old game with a fresh coat of paint, this is a true reimagining. The technical focus here is on environmental fluidity. The water physics in the Mediterranean levels and the jungle foliage in Peru aren't just background assets, they are fully interactive. When Lara swims, the water deforms and ripples with a realism that matches high-end CG movies. The character model for Lara herself is a technical masterpiece, featuring subsurface scattering on her skin and individual hair strand physics that react to the humidity of the caves. But the real next-gen hook? The scale. The Lost Valley isn't just a room with a T-Rex anymore. It's a massive open ecosystem where you can see for miles. It's a 10 out of 10 visual experience that respects the low-poly roots while showing us what the peak of 3D realism looks like in 2026.
All right, bro, let's talk about the big one. The Witcher 4, Project Polaris. CD Projekt Red has ditched their old engine for Unreal Engine 5, and the results we're seeing for the 2027 release window are borderline illegal. This game is being built as a strategic partnership with Epic Games, specifically to push the limits of open-world streaming. What that means for us is a world with 0 loading screens and 0 pop-in. The technical highlight is the hardware-accelerated ray tracing. Every puddle in Novigrad, every glint of steel on Ciri's sword, and every sunset over the Skellige Isles is being calculated with a level of light bounce precision that we've never seen in an RPG of this scale. They're building a new snow physics system specifically for the School of the Lynx, where the environment physically reacts to the cold, changing the way you move and how monsters track you. It's not just The Witcher 3 with better graphics, it's a total evolution of the living world concept. The quest design is being rebuilt to remove all fetch mechanics, and the technical fidelity of the characters makes them look like real people you're talking to, not just NPCs. It is the most ambitious project in gaming history, and it is going to be the definitive another generation experience.
The Blood of Dawnwalker. Man, if you loved The Witcher but wanted something darker, grittier, and way more bloodthirsty, The Blood of Dawnwalker is the game that's going to own your 2026. Developed by Rebel Wolves, a studio founded by the creative leads behind The Witcher 3, this is a dark fantasy RPG set in 14th century Europe during the Black Death. But here's the twist. It's not just about the plague, it's about the rise of vampires. Technically, what's pushing the PS5 here is the dual gameplay loop. You play as Cone, a Dawnwalker who is human by day and a vampire by night. The engine has to render 2 completely different versions of the world, one where you're vulnerable to the sun and rely on stealth and human resolve, and another where the world becomes a playground of cursed vampiric powers. Built on Unreal Engine 5, the gothic realism is staggering. We're talking about mud-soaked medieval villages where the volumetric fog and the lighting from the torches create an atmosphere so thick you can almost smell the rot. The time sensitivity mechanic is a technical marvel. The world moves forward whether you're ready or not. If you spend too much time preparing, the plague spreads, and the NPCs you are supposed to save might be gone by the time you arrive. It's a high-stakes, narrative-heavy beast that proves that the old guard of RPGs still knows how to innovate.
Phantom Blade Zero, listen bro, the wait for Phantom Blade Zero is almost over, and its September 2026 release is going to set a new bar for action games. They're calling the style Kung Fu Punk, and honestly, it's the most visually aggressive thing I've seen on a screen. Technically, what's squeezing the PS5 here is the animation density. Most games sacrifice detail for speed, but Phantom Blade Zero uses a proprietary motion capture system that records every subtle shift in a martial artist's weight. When you parry a brutal move and trigger a ghost step to teleport behind an enemy, the fluidity is so high it feels like you're watching a choreographed movie. Even though they're using Unreal Engine 5, the developers made a specific technical choice to use hardware-accelerated ray tracing for shadows and reflections instead of standard lumen, giving the rain-slicked rooftops and ancient Chinese temples a hyper-defined look that feels more grounded. The combat isn't just fast, it's systemic. You're managing Sha-Chi energy, switching between 30 different weapons, and navigating a semi-open world that feels like one massive, interconnected martial arts epic. It's a 10 out of 10 technical spectacle that proves that Chinese mythology and hard action are a match made in heaven. Control Resonant, Control 2, is finally taking us back to the weirdest world in gaming, and man, it's a technical powerhouse.
This time, we're out of the oldest house and into a warped, reality-broken version of Manhattan. Built on Remedy's own Northlight engine, the game is a masterclass in deterministic physics. In the original, you could throw a chair. In Resonant, you can rip apart entire city blocks. The gravity anomalies are the real technical flex here. Large zones where the rules of physics just stop working. The PS5 has to calculate the orientation of thousands of objects floating in midair simultaneously, all while maintaining 4K resolution. You're playing as Dylan Faden this time, and his aberrant shape-shifting weapon is a marvel of particle rendering. It shifts and flows like liquid metal, reflecting the environment with a level of precision that only path tracing can provide. It feels like a true next-gen sequel because it takes that claustrophobic, new weird energy and explodes it into an open-world Manhattan that feels like a beautiful, terrifying hallucination.
Almost there, Zoe.
Marvel's Wolverine. Alright, let's talk about the most anticipated PS5 exclusive of 2026. Marvel's Wolverine. Insomniac is finally letting the claws out this fall, and bro, the technical fidelity is it's brutal. What's pushing the console here is the real-time anatomical damage. This isn't just red splashes on the screen. When Logan takes a hit, the engine renders deep gashes that physically expose his muscle tissue, and then you watch it knit back together using a proprietary regeneration shader. It's visceral, it's bloody, and it's incredibly demanding on the hardware. But the real star is the sensory tracking. Because Wolverine uses his smell and hearing to track prey, the game uses a high-contrast sensory overlay that forces the PS5 to render two versions of the environment at once, the real world and the Hunter Vision world. The lighting in the Madripoor jungles, where the sun filters through dense, physics-based foliage, creates a sense of tactile immersion that makes you feel like a predator. It's a darker, mature-rated take on the Marvel Universe that uses every bit of the PS5's SSD to stream in high-speed combat and massive, destructible environments without a single hitch. It is the definitive Logan experience we've been waiting for.
I'm Wolverine.
What a sight to behold.
Ace Combat 8: Wings of Thieves is about to make you rethink what next-gen atmosphere even means. Project Aces has moved to Unreal Engine 5.4, and they've built a custom plugin called Aero Lumen just for this game. Technically, what's crushing the hardware here is the volumetric weather simulation. We aren't just flying through 2D textures anymore. Every cloud is a fully 3D physics-calculated entity that reacts to your jet's supersonic wake. If you fly through a thunderstorm, the lightning isn't just a flash on the screen. It's a real-time light source that bounces off your cockpit glass and illuminates the individual raindrops streaking across your canopy. The Wings of Thieves subtitle refers to a new heist mechanic where you're dodging radar in ultra-tight canyons, and the nanite geometry on those cliff faces is so dense it looks like a National Geographic documentary. In 2026, playing this with a VR headset or even just a 4K OLED is a religious experience. The sense of speed, the sonic boom physics, and the sheer technical polish of the dogfights make this the most impressive flight sim ever created. It's high-octane, it's gorgeous, and it's absolute proof that the PS5 and high-end PCs still have plenty of power left to flex. Onimusha: Way of the Sword. Capcom is finally bringing back the legend, and Onimusha: Way of the Sword is a masterclass in supernatural realism. This 2026 reboot is using a brand new version of the RE engine that was specifically optimized for swordplay physics and soul absorption effects. What makes this a graphics king is the dynamic lighting and disintegration tech. When you strike a Genma demon with your katana, the engine calculates the spirit burn. You actually see the demon's flesh turn into glowing embers that drift away in the wind, lighting up the environment around you. The character model for the new protagonist is so detailed, you can see the individual stitches in his samurai robes and the way the sweat interacts with the blood on his face. Technically, the game humbles the competition with its zero-latency combat system, where every frame of animation is perfectly synced to the haptic feedback of the DualSense. Walking through a rain-slicked Kyoto at night with the ray-traced reflections of burning pagodas in the puddles, man, it's breathtaking. It's a dark, violent, and technically flawless return to a classic that makes feudal Japan look more terrifying and beautiful than ever before. Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. Amy Hennig is back, and Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra is the game that is finally blurring the line between a movie and a video game. This is the big showcase for Unreal Engine 5's meta-human technology. The facial animations on Captain America and Black Panther are so advanced that you can read their emotions through subtle muscle twitches in their foreheads and eyes. No more dead-eye syndrome here. Technically, what's pushing the limit is the global illumination in occupied Paris. The way the moonlight interacts with the cobblestone streets and the smoke from the war-torn buildings is all handled by Lumen, creating a cinematic noir aesthetic that is unparalleled. The technical focus isn't on open-world size, but on asset density. Every room you enter is filled with hundreds of unique, high-fidelity objects that all have their own physics properties. It's a linear plus experience, which allows the developers to crank the graphics to a level that an open-world game just couldn't handle. It feels like a $200 million Marvel blockbuster that you just happen to be controlling. If you want to show someone what next-gen looks like in 2026, this is the game you put on.
By the look of things, he's not very far ahead.
The American boy is right.
007 First Light. IO Interactive is taking everything they learned from Hitman and turning it into the ultimate James Bond origin story. 007 First Light is a technical marvel because of its social stealth physics. The Glacier engine has been upgraded to handle massive crowds, where every NPC has a unique ray-traced reflection in their sunglasses. Yeah, the detail is that crazy. But the real star is the material fidelity. Whether it's the velvet of a casino chair, the brushed aluminum of a gadget, or the skin on Bond's hands, the light reacts to every surface with 100% physical accuracy. Technically, the game uses a seamless infiltration system. You go from a high-speed car chase on the Swiss Alps to walking into a high-stakes gala with 0 loading screens. The First Light subtitle refers to a new lighting engine that simulates real-time time-of-day shifts during missions, meaning a level might start at dusk and end in total darkness, completely changing the guard patterns and the shadows you use for cover. It's sophisticated, it's polished, and it feels like the first time a Bond game has actually had the budget and the tech to match the movies. Resident Evil 9. Capcom is preparing to shut down the internet with Resident Evil 9, and from everything we're seeing for its late 2026 launch, this is the most ambitious horror game ever conceived. Built on a brand new, specialized version of the RE engine designed for open zone horror, it humbles current games with its organic gore system. We aren't talking about pre-baked blood splatters anymore. The engine simulates flesh, bone, and fluid in real time. If you shoot a creature, the wound stays exactly where the bullet hit, affecting its movement and AI behavior. Technically, the game is pushing the PS5 CPU to the limit with its atmospheric pressure system. The fog and wind in this coastal setting aren't just visual effects, they are physical entities that push against the player and muffle the 3D audio. The lighting is full path tracing, meaning every flickering candle in a dark hallway is calculating real-world light bounces. It creates a sense of suffocating realism, where the shadows feel heavy and alive. It's a massive, terrifying evolution that moves the series into a semi-open world without losing that claustrophobic dread that made the classics legendary. Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. If you haven't heard of this, you need to put it on your radar immediately. This is the new project from the creators of Enslaved and DMC, and it is a technical masterclass in cyber-organic aesthetics. Built on Unreal Engine 5.5, the game uses a revolutionary text called Neural LOD, which uses AI to sharpen textures and geometry in real time based on where the player is looking. This allows the game to render alien cities with a level of verticality and population density that would normally crash a console. The art direction is surrealist sci-fi, and the lighting, oh man, the lighting. Because the world is filled with strange minerals and bioluminescent flora, the global illumination creates a dreamlike glow that feels truly alien. Technically, the combat is a physics-first system, where your psychic powers interact with the environment in unscripted ways. If you rip a piece of a building off to use as a shield, the engine calculates the structural integrity of what's left. It's a bold, intellectually challenging, and visually staggering epic that shows us what happens when a studio is given the freedom to build a completely new universe from scratch. GTA 6. What is there left to say about GTA 6? By the time we hit the 2026 PC release and the post-launch expansions, this game will be the benchmark for human engineering. This isn't just a game, it's the most complex societal simulation ever created. Rockstar's updated Rage engine is doing things with AI behavior and physics convergence that make other open worlds look like toys. We're talking about dynamic hair and clothing simulation that reacts to the humidity and wind of Leonida. If it's raining, your clothes get heavy and stick to your character's skin. If you're speeding in a convertible, the wind physics affect every strand of hair. But the real technical flex is the interior to exterior seamlessness. In previous games, most buildings were just boxes. In GTA 6, a massive percentage of the world is fully modeled inside. You can look through a window from the street, see a fully rendered room with its own lighting and NPCs, and walk inside without a single loading screen. The water displacement tech for the Everglades is a standalone miracle. It is the most expensive, most detailed, and most technically advanced piece of entertainment in history. Period.
Thing that matters is who you know and what you got.
Gonna do this? We're doing it right.
Crimson Desert. To finish this list, we have Crimson Desert, the game that is basically the final boss of fantasy graphics. Pearl Abyss is using their proprietary Black Space engine to deliver a level of material realism that humbles even the biggest Western RPGs. What's pushing the tech here is the unified simulation. Usually, games have separate systems for combat, weather, and physics. In Crimson Desert, they are all one. If a storm rolls in, the wind physics affect the weight of your sword swings. The lightning can strike a tree, which then catches fire and burns realistically based on the wind direction. The character customization and animation are also next level. Every piece of armor you wear is a separate physical object that clanks and moves with its own weight. Technically, the boss scalability is insane. You'll be fighting monsters the size of skyscrapers, and the game maintains a level of micro detail on their skin and fur that is usually reserved for small corridor games. It is a massive, brutal, and visually breathtaking epic that proves the future of the open-world RPG is more alive and more reactive than we ever dared to imagine.
Traces of the abyss you discover will open up fast travel locations.
Bro, just thinking about these 16 titles makes me realize that we are entering the golden age of realism. Between 2026 and 2027, the gap between looking at a screen and stepping into a world is going to disappear. Whether it's the time-warping stakes of Exodus, the cinematic perfection of Marvel 1943, or the sheer world-shaking scale of GTA 6, we are witnessing a technical revolution. So I want to know from you, which of these 2026-2027 titans is the one that's going to make you upgrade your rig or finally buy that OLED TV?
Drop a comment below, let's talk about the future.